are watching Over the Back Fence, a conversation among neighbors. This is a production of Neighborhood Falmouth. I'm Susan Laux, the director of Neighborhood Falmouth, and our conversationalists today include Jackie Pratt, Mary Pat McKenzie, Marian Bihari, and me. So today's very, very serious topic is bad haircuts. So I'm sporting one right now, and you know, on really despairing days, I have a lot of resemblance to Bozo the clown from back then, you know, because it kind of does the earmuffs thing, and then, you know, I don't know, whatever. Anyways, but one of my best bad haircut stories is jumping right in, is at the time of, so I was working up in Boston. I must have been in my early mid-20s. And somebody gave me the tip on going to this hair salon in the South End. And it was this, you know, very gay guy who had a salon to himself, or maybe another couple of people. And he said, you know, I can squeeze you in, but you have to come at like 6 at night or something. And the shop will be closed, but I'll give you a haircut. I said, that's great. And so I walked over there from my work, and, you know, he closed the door and put on the music, and he said, do you mind if I get high? And I said, well, no, I don't mind. And he said, do you want to get high with me? And I said, sure, of course I do. And so we both got stoned, and he did my hair. And I said, you know, I'd like to go for something that's, you know, kind of cutting edge, kind of, you know, new and now. And, you know, it's like, you know, there are advantages to having curly hair, but you're rarely going to find something that, you know, fits into cutting edge. You know, there are no edges here. It's all fluff, you know. And anyways, so he gave me this thing that was basically like a modified mullet. And so it was really long in a strip here. I mean, relatively long. And, you know, and my hair was never that much longer than it is now, or that much shorter. But then the sides were pretty much shaved off, and it was pretty much just shaved. And anyways, it was the weekend of my brother's wedding. And so when I got down to the Cape, which was where the wedding was happening, and my parents had flown in from our home in Omaha, and so there were already cars in the driveway, so I sort of parked near the street. And as I was walking toward the house, my mom comes out because she was so excited to see me, and I was so excited to see her. And she throws her arms open, and she's, you know, at the other end of the driveway, and I'm walking towards her, and she's like, your hair looks great. And I said, thanks. And I started walking towards her. And as I get closer and closer, her eyes just start bugging out. But she had already proclaimed that she loved my hair, so she wasn't allowed to kind of backpedal. So anyway, so she had to kind of like swallow her words, her real comments of like, what were you thinking? Why would you do this during, you know, your brother's wedding and all this kind of stuff. The one good thing, and it really was not a good looking haircut, but I did sort of feel cutting edge. The one really good thing though was that my sister-in-law to be maid of honor, my sister-in-law is very mainstream and very concerned with, you know, how she presents, how others around her present. She's, you know, stay within the lines, and that is, and her lines are great, and she's wonderful. Her maid of honor shaved her head completely. So I really, I mean, I kind of dodged a couple of bullets on this because my mom had already given the verdict from way down in the driveway, and there was somebody who had a worse, not worse, I mean, I thought it looked cool, but you know, a more dramatic haircut than I did. So anyways.
Do you have pictures of that?
Yeah, somewhere, you know, in the wedding pictures. I mean, you don't really notice because there's always so much hair that, you know, it's like it's not until you're much closer that you realize something's going on there. But
I would love to see a picture.
yeah, it was kind of goofy. And, you know, one other haircut story I will tell you is that I was talking with a girlfriend once about, generally feeling intimidated going to these like ultra groovy people, and you just, I just never talk that much in the chair, and I really don't, I don't have to share secrets and stuff like that, and talk among other people in the shop and stuff. I kind of am just quiet. But she said that she went to a hairdresser and the guy got talking on the phone with somebody, and he cut half of her hair and then never cut the other half and said, "You're done," and sent her off. And she didn't have the courage. She was young, she was in her 20s, to say anything. So she just was like, "Thanks, how much do I owe you?" And she left, knowing perfectly well that this guy had only cut one half of her head.
Oh,
Oh, oh.
That story. So those are my two haircut stories, although I'm sure I've got a million more because, with this you do. But anyway, okay, Marion.
well, I don't really remember a lot about things, but mine isn't so much about a haircut. Mine is about a permanent, a body wave. I don't think they do body waves anymore, but I have very, very fine hair. I have my father's hair. His hair, he had a lot of it, but it was like, baby fine hair. Even when he got old, even in his 80s, he had baby fine. Anyway, so it would never stay the way I wanted it to. So one of the hairdressers that I was going to, and I was probably in my mid 20s, decided that maybe I should get a permanent. And I said, well, I've never had a permanent before. My hair is very fine. Oh, it will be great. You won't even, it'll be more of a body permanent. So she put all these little curlers in my hair, and she put the conditioner and the perm and whatever. And I'm sitting there. I'm thinking to myself, this is probably not a good idea. And she, the time that the little clock goes off and she takes it out, and I look like, what was the kid with the dog,
Orphan Annie.
Orphan Annie.
And I had, my hair was all these little things going all over the place. And she tried to brush it out and she couldn't. And she said, "Oh, how do you like it?" And I actually think I sat there and started to cry because it takes a long time for all that to grow out. So it was horrible, and it didn't make my hair feel any thicker. So P.S., many years later, when I lived in New York, I went to somebody actually for 26 years. He was in Manhattan. He had used to work at Saks Fifth Avenue, left Saks Fifth Avenue and started doing it in his house. And he too said to me, they now have perms that, build your hair up a little bit. So I said, no, but he tried it, and he just did a crown perm. And it wasn't curly. So it did give me a little bit of body, but I did it for a while and then I stopped, but it didn't make any, now I don't, I have very fine hair, and you don't want to put a permanent in very fine hair. Awful.
And imagine what, in addition to how horrifying that experience must have been for you, imagine what it must be to be the hairdresser pretending that
Right.
it worked out.
And I also
when
think
it
that those
clearly didn't.
permanent waves or whatever, aren't very good for the hair. So your hair starts to break off and
Split
yeah,
ends. Yeah.
the permanent solution is very, very strong.
It's like
And
a
if you have a
monster
head
stuff.
of hair like you do, Susan, maybe it wouldn't be too bad. But for someone who's got very, thin hair, it just took off for a life of its own.
Oh my,
It was awful.
oh my
I
God.
wanted to shave my head or wear a hat for the 6 months.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible. Who else? Mary Pat, Jackie?
Well, I had one very, very, very short haircut. Not the one I gave myself for picture day in grade 1,
Hmm.
where I just cut everything there. which all of my children did too. They all did it. And John did it to his best friend, Ian, as well as to himself. So not that one. In 1967, my high school class, we all went to Montreal. It was our like end of the year trip for Expo 67. And Mia Farrow had that really short haircut, remember?
Oh yeah, that was great. She was very
Oh,
ingenue.
So we were staying, so there were like 15 of us, and we went to the Convent of the Sacred Heart in Halifax, but there was an other Convent of the Sacred Heart in Montreal. So we were staying in the dorm. And we decided that it would be really cool to cut each other's hair. So the person who cut my hair gave me, I swear to God, a crew cut. It was shorter than Mia Farrow. All of the pictures from that trip, I looked like I was scalped. And I mean, what are you gonna do? People recognize the cut, but they kind of laughed because you're walking around Montreal and you're almost bald. Well, I figured it'll grow back, and it did. And I have, oddly enough, now I haven't had a haircut this year except for what I've done myself. Because my kids would never go to a barber or a hairdresser. And Donald used to decide that he needed his haircut like at 9 o'clock at night for a meeting the next morning. So I learned to cut hair, and I did everybody's hair for years until Donald decided I should use the clippers one time.
oh.
And he moved his head at the wrong time, went right up the back. So
Oh my God.
nor did I give him a mirror. Now you got to understand, he was working like in corporate America in New York. So I made John, my youngest, I swore him to secrecy. I said, do not tell Dad what it looks like on the back of it.
Did he ever find out?
Yes. Well, you
How long
can
did it take
imagine
for
he
it to
worked for a
grow back?
fashion company. He went to work.
Oh my gosh. Oh my.
That was actually, it saved me a lot of anxiety because I never had to cut his hair again. I
Lost the job.
until coronavirus. And the kids decided at that point that I probably wasn't the best bet either.
Oh my gosh, that is great. That
So
is
yeah,
great.
there are ways to get out of cutting people's hair. It's like giving them a really bad cut.
Yeah, Kyle always wants to cut my hair. When I come home from the hairdresser, he says, how much did you pay for that? Because he always feels like they cut like this much and this much and this much. And he said, I'll do it for nothing. And just
Right.
he holds up his little
Yeah.
saber and he's like, are you ready? I'm like, no, you're not touching it.
Well, no, and I mean, even curly hair, you could, I mean, if I just crimped mine's curly and not as curly as yours, but it's curly. So I could get away with it when it was short, but I can't anymore. And I'm never having a Mia Farrow cut again. Thank God I was little and skinny at the time.
Yeah, you
I
gotta
mean,
have the right face. for
My
that.
ears were completely bare.
Yeah.
The bangs were like to there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I used to actually comb the front of my hair when I was a kid, because you could see in the mirror, and you comb the front, and
Yeah.
then, you'd walk away, and it was like, you know. Anyways, Jackie, how about you?
I've had an incredible number of bad perms, bad haircuts, I too have really fine hair. And I I hit New York after I got married out of college, I wanted to work for a PR firm, and I did get the job, but the thing is, they didn't know my hair wasn't mine, it was a wig. I hit New York with a hair that was probably as long as yours in the front, Mary Pat, but DA'd, remember the old DA?
Oh, yes.
And I have a perfect DA. So I had the DA in the back, because that's what in Holden, Massachusetts, that's what the hairdresser did to me. and he probably didn't like me. But the thing is that it was what people were wearing. But I looked around New York and I thought, oh no, I've got to go to job interviews. So I went one. I had a classmate who was working for Bergdorf Goodman, and she said when it grows out enough, she said I'll take you upstairs to the Americana salon. But but until then, she said go down to Saks because they just got a line of wigs in, and you like them because they're. And so I got a long one. I got a sort of a to the chin bob, and did my interviews with the wigs. I can't. Thank God I hung on to those because every once in a while I decide that I did. I did go to the Americana salon. It looked great, and man, it was terrific. But then I ended up in growing it out, and actually, long it's not too bad. It's not great today, but the thing is, I haven't had it trimmed all through COVID, and my hairdresser isn't back at the salon, and it's like hairdressers and long hair. They get the scissors in their hand, and they
Right.
there's some kind of instinct to be godlike that takes over, and they kind of do it.
Everything looks like a nail.
But-
Yes, when that's all you got is a hammer.
Yeah, and the thing is that I admit that bobs look good, but the trouble is maintaining them when they have very fine hair.
It's precise.
Yeah, and so the thing is that the other thing is, if I back when I used the scooter some, and even now in the wheelchair, the thing is that I need to be able to see what's going on around me.
Yeah.
And a bob, it's so fine, it just all blows in my face.
Mm.
That's never good if if you lack the ability to jump out of the way of things,
Yeah.
to not be able to see.
Right.
I tend to be. I've got to track the stylist down and figure out where she went. But probably the unhappiest I've been is for my daughter's wedding. Before the wedding, I got trimmed. It was, and I looked terrific at the the reception the night before the day of the wedding. She had a group of people. She had all her attendants and all of the family had their hair done. You were supposed to come with your hair wet, and there was somebody who did makeup, and the makeup was beautiful. They did a really good job. The hair was awful because they decided they were going to do banana curls. And you can't imagine what I look like with banana curls.
I bet you look good, actually.
I don't know why at every wedding they have somebody there to do the hair. They don't know the person,
Right.
and your hair never looks the way it should look at these. I watch television sometime, and
It's
I see
unnatural.
very unnatural.
Yeah.
So I think they didn't mean to interrupt, but my sister, I stood up for her and she said, "You want your hair done?" And I said, "No, I want to do it myself." I mean, you don't look like yourself, and they don't know who you are. So,
I agree. Although I went with wet hair to my wedding and to my daughter's.
oh,
I was the last one in the shower.
God.
That's-
And how did those
So Susan-
pictures come out?
Oh, fine, because it was short and curly. I mean, it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Susan, I want to know if you ever ironed your hair, because my sister and I used to iron our hair.
My
Really?
mother ironed my hair. She's
Yeah.
like, we've got to do the ironing. And so she would do it. And I do remember a few times, like, the point of the iron goes into your
Yes,
skull. You
yes.
get like, Mom,
Yeah.
stop,
Yeah.
And she,
Oh, no, it's really bad.
but
You have your head like this, and it's being
oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
Well, it was,
it's,
everyone had straight blonde or mousy brown hair,
Right.
and occasionally there was somebody who had long, glossy, dark hair, like a version of yours, Jackie. And, but, nobody had the short,
curly.
and actually I used to brush my hair out a lot so the curls show more, but still, my mom was like, you want to do this? It had become so apparent to me really early on that I was never going to fit the ideal for any metric of girl, in my class or my peer group. So I just was sort of like gave up on it all pretty early, which is it's kind of freeing and kind of depressing.
Yeah.
But
Well, because, and the other thing is with curly hair, I mean, you might iron it like for 45 minutes before you go to a dance, but if it's damp and you're 15 or 16, then suddenly it's frizz bomb and you wasted all that time ironing your head.
oh, yeah. I do have to say you can, like, I feel like if things get really wackadoo, I can just pick up the scissors and do a little bit of this.
Yeah.
Because you really can't tell, it's just all kind of there. Were you trying to add something, Jackie, and you could not even get a word in sideways?
That's all right. The thing is, what came to my mind when you guys were talking is, I also did what you did, Susan. I decided I was living in New Orleans, and I decided I wanted to be more cutting edge. And it was long. My hair was long at the time, and it really was glorious. I was healthy. I was young. It was, and but I went to I had a coworker who had shaved up on one side and then straight down on the other.
Oh yeah, that was a look. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a real look.
I think I wanted that, but I didn't go in and ask for that because I thought that'd be tacky. And it was her salon after all. So the one she used, not the one she didn't work at. But she said, you know what I'd like to try with you? A blonde afro. So,
What an inspired idea.
I hope you said no.
no, I said yes. And oh yeah, it took me about 6 months to grow it out. And it wasn't so bad looking once it started to grow out because it was just curly, but kind of.
Oh my
But
gosh.
in the beginning, it was very strange. And of course, and the thing is, I worked with a bunch of men. I worked for an oil company. And the thing is that, and I'm out on the rigs. I mean, I got teased unmercifully for every minute of that because I mean, I had forgotten about that until somebody said just set it off in my head. And I remember being, out there in in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico on top of a rig, somebody teasing me and thinking, I could throw you off, you son of a gun.
Don't make fun of my hair.
Great.
We should all find a picture of ourselves with our hair.
Yes.
Oh,
A
that
funny-
was fun.
And then
Fun.
bring it one day and just show
I
That,
just,
if we
I
could
just
find it.
hope that there aren't any.
Yeah, right.
exactly. Didn't memorialize that. I do have to say one thing, Jackie, that you said that it's totally a pet peeve of mine. Is I hate, for a while I had a stylist where we were doing the thing, I say and where you do this one straight piece and it kind of goes
Yes.
behind your ear. And I thought that looked, mildly fetching, doesn't now, but it did sort of at the moment. But this thing where it all hangs in your face. Now you were saying, you could get hit by a car or something. This drives me nuts to have my hair in
Yeah.
my face. And people who can look fetching and like love this look,
Yeah.
power to them, but it drives me nuts.
So have you found anybody that can cut your hair the way you want it to be cut?
No, for me, I don't know the way I want it to be cut.
I'll cut it for you.
Oh, yeah, right.
Thank you, Mary Pat. Let me get back to you on that. Can we use the shaver?
Ellen and I can each do a
Yeah,
side.
let's use the shaver on that. All right, well, should we bring this to a close? I
Yeah.
think this has been, I knew this would be super fun to talk about this.
Yeah.
I love talking about bad haircuts and about wacky hair stuff. It shows the depth of my character, I suppose. Anyways, all right, you have been watching Over the Back Fence, a conversation among friends and neighbors. And this is a production of Neighborhood Falmouth. We hope we'll see you another time. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.